Kalalah Malak Yahweh, Wa Yahushai, Bahashem, Rahak, Wadash, and double honors to the elders of D.U.M.B.S, blessings unto those men, and blessings and salutations to the Akim out there in truth, pushing his word in all sincerity and in honesty. With that being said, Shalom Israel Barakatah. Today's lesson, the D.U.M.B.S of REFUGE. And when it comes to the building of these underground bunkers, they are known as D.U.M.B.S, or deep underground military bases. With that being said, let's go over to the scripture of Amos 9:2, because it speaks of these so-called D.U.M.B.S. Here we have that scripture of Amos 9:2. Though they dig into hell, meaning underground, then shall my hand take them. Though they climb up to heaven, thence will I bring them down. Though they dig into hell, meaning into their deep underground military bases or D.U.M.B.S, then shall my hand take them. And once the smoke clears, then shall the Lord Yahweh, Wa Yahushai, utilize his chosen elect men in power to take them captives. That's pursuant to Psalms 149, verse 8 and 9. The true nation of Israel, which consists of so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, served under their enemies in the one of all things. And in the perfect balance of the Lord, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, those enemies shall serve the true nation of Israel as servants and as handmaids. So the tables shall be turned in the Lord's perfect balance. The Lord is about a perfect balance, according to the scripture of Proverbs 11:1. And when it goes on to say, though they climb up to heaven, thence will I bring them down, meaning that they shall even be brought down from among their space station. They do have an international space station. Amos 9:3. And though they hide themselves in the top of Carmel, I will search and take them out thence. And though they be hid from my sight in the bottom of the sea, thence will I command the serpent, and he shall bite them. And though they be hid from my sight in the bottom of the sea, thence will I command the serpent, and he shall bite them. Even the enormous Leviathan that was made to inhabit the moist shall bite them at the bottom of the sea. And that word bite, according to its etymology online, means to pierce or cut with the teeth. So in other words, there will be no place to run and no place to hide from the eyes and judgment of the Lord Yahweh, Wa Yahushai. Nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. Just like the song of Martha Reeves and the Vandellas. But when it comes to those places of refuge upon Babylon the Great, which is America, they shall only be temporary, because the scripture of Jeremiah 51 and verse 29 has said that it shall become a desolation and without inhabitants. That is the utter judgment of Babylon the Great in these times. Jeremiah 51 verse 29. And the land shall tremble in sorrow, for every purpose of the Lord shall be performed against Babylon, to make the land of Babylon a desolation without an inhabitant. And this Babylon is not referring to ancient Iraq, but speaks of modern day Babylon the Great, which is America. America is modern day Babylon the Great. Biblical prophecy has said, for every purpose of the Lord Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, shall be performed against Babylon, to make the land of Babylon a desolation without an inhabitant. Russia, along with the other nations, shall shoot forth their arrows of destruction. And when it comes to biblical scripture, it clearly states that the army of the horsemen was 200 million missiles. Let's also go over to that scripture. Here we have that scripture of Revelation 9:16. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. And this scripture speaks of the 200 million missiles that shall take flight. Many missiles capable of carrying multiple warheads inside of that one missile alone, like the Sarmat of the Russian military. So imagine if multiple inbound missiles were to hit the same spot, it will just literally chip away at the land or mountainous region until there is nothing. Right, because you're talking about 200 million. It shall level modern day Babylon the Great from coast to coast. The reason I say that is because I asked Google what happens at ground zero of a nuclear detonation. And its reply was, thermal radiation is so intense that almost everything close to ground zero is vaporized. The extreme heat causes severe burns and ignites fires over a large area, which coalesce into a giant firestorm. Even people in underground shelters face likely death due to a lack of oxygen and carbon monoxide poisoning. And when it comes to the detonation of nuclear weapons, the radioactive material that is carried up into the air returns back to the earth as radioactive fallout. Right, that's where that wormwood of contamination comes into play. That's in Revelation 8 and 11. And when it comes to the word wormwood, it's of Ukrainian translation meaning Chernobyl. And we all know about the Chernobyl disaster that began on April 26, 1986, with the explosion of the number 4 reactor of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. And that was near the city of Pripyat. So just imagine a constant bombardment of missiles falling upon modern day Babylon the Great. Nothing shall live. That's why the scripture of Jeremiah 51:29 has said that the land of Babylon shall tremble in sorrow and shall become desolate without inhabitants. This is the will of the Lord. This is the purpose of the Lord, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai, to remove her from power. And it says it in Jeremiah 51:29. Modern day Babylon shall burn for a long time, but after the smoke clears, it shall become a den for wild birds, according to the scripture of Isaiah 34 and 11, and other scriptures. And this is one of the reasons why the elites of society are going to hide in the bunkers of the other nations, of the other lands outside of America. Here is Revelation 9 and 17. And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and of jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. And can real horses shoot forth fire, jacinth, and brimstone? The answer to that is no. This scripture refers to the deadly effects of a nuclear detonation. The heads of the horses speak of those nuclear warheads of destruction. Remember, one missile can carry multiple warheads. They showed you that in the movie Iron Man with the Jericho missile. And these missiles that shall be shot into the ends of the world, the ends of the world represents modern day Babylon the Great, which is America. That represents destruction and the end of this wicked generation and wicked civilization at hand. And the real servants of the Lord, Yahweh Yahushai, that are stationed in these four corners of the earth, are telling you what is getting ready to occur and take place in these last days. So the scripture of Ecclesiastes 3 and 8 has said, a time of war and a time of peace. But no longer are the nations at peace with one another. Now they find themselves in high war tensions with one another and continuing those high tensions. Revelation 9 and 18, by these three was the third part of men killed by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone, which issued out of their mouths. So that's clearly speaking about nuclear missiles. Remember that those missiles, especially the Sarmat, that Satan II Sarmat, is capable of carrying multiple warheads inside of that one missile alone. So fire shall issue out of their mouths, you see? Here we have that scripture of Zechariah 14 and 12. And this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. The last plague are the arrows, aka those nukes of mass destruction that will consume everything in their destructive paths. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. And that is due to the destroying wind sweeping them away. The same scenario as when Sarah Connor held the fence in her dream and was suddenly swept away by the heat of the destroying wind. Babylon the Great shall become a big lake of fire when it's all said and done. But after the smoke clears, that's when those birds shall move in to stretch themselves upon that line of confusion among those borderlines of the states. You're not going to know where one state began and another one ended. Revelation 6:14. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. Back then, they did not have fancy words such as ICBMs or nuclear missiles to describe those destructive weapons of the nations. So they named them as arrows, according to the terminology of their time, or what was known in their time. The heaven departed as a scroll refers to the effect of a mushroom cloud after detonation. And this is the vivid vision that the Apostle John saw upon the island of Patmos, and what Isaiah saw as well. Since they did not have the fancy terminology of a mushroom cloud during their time, they named the destructive effect as a rolled up scroll. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. Right, due to the detonations of these nuclear weapons. The Lord did say that he would shake the heavens and the earth in the scripture of Haggai 2:6. But with that being said, Kalala Malak Yahweh, Wa Yahushai, Bahashem, Racha, Qudash, and double honors to the elders of D.U.M.B.S of REFUGE. Blessings unto those men, and blessings and salutations to the Akim out there in truth, pushing his word in all sincerity and in honesty. With that being said, Shalom Israel Barakatah. Shalom.